Okay.
Yeah, 'cause I think that's right.
Is Vanessa coming?
It's 8.
Looks like somebody's waiting for it. And
Somebody's coming in on the screen, so that might be Vanessa, Annie.
Okay.
Right?
You're good to go.
Uh,
I think we got it, but
well, you have 5 members.
all right.
of 8.
Yeah,
More
well,
than
you have
half.
it.
Yeah, there's somebody trying to come in, you said?
Yep.
Yep, looks like it.
There's somebody in the waiting room.
It's as long as it's one more than half, you're good, right?
I believe so for the
Oh,
quorum.
it's being recorded.
Yeah.
As long as you have as long as you
It's
have a
really
majority
tiny.
present.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
It's 8, right, for this?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, now somebody's
Get there.
Isn't this exciting?
It is. I got my gap already. All right. I'm just going to kick us off. So we are here for the Sanborn Regional School District Budget Committee meeting on August 25th, 2022 at 7 p.m. It is now 7:02. We will start the meeting. And first up is the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the
The
republic
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I always want to say amen after that.
All right.
Hi, Christine. You're over there.
Christine. Give you a second. Just a little bit of technical difficulty. Welcome, Christine. All right. So approval of minutes from April 2022. I believe Vanessa was taking those and she's not here. Annie, do you have an update by chance?
I didn't hear anything from Vanessa, whether she's coming or not, so I don't know. But we can just go ahead and approve the minutes as written, unless somebody has any changes. We just need to have a motion.
Just a question.
Do we
Where are the minutes?
Yeah, we don't have the minutes, Annie.
Oh, you don't?
No. Oh, I don't.
Okay,
know if
all
others-
right. Let me follow up on that. I'm sorry. I have my computer is down, so I don't know what's going on. I thought they were in the Google Drive. I will follow up on that for the next meeting.
Fair enough. It's okay for us just to approve minutes like next meeting for both of these. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. And with that, I listened to the last meeting, and so I don't think we have any meeting minutes to go over it, but for as far as action items, I think it was, we're going to follow up and have this training with Matt. And so I think we can kick that off, Matt. I'm sorry, I'm going out of order. Training on roles and responsibilities and joint session with school board. So about a month ago, was it, guys? We had the meeting with the lawyer and the school board. I think most of us were in attendance, just giving us a rundown on roles and responsibilities. Annie, was this intent, like, are there any follow-up questions?
I guess if anybody has any questions, and if anybody didn't attend or look at the meeting, just a notification that it's on there, and basically outlining, most of it was about the school board, because most of the responsibility, there's a lot of responsibilities for the school board, but it did delineate, the attorney did delineate what the budget committee is responsible for.
Yes.
And I would just point out, if anybody wanted to look at that from home, that's on the school board's video. So there's not a budget committee video with that on. It's on the school board's video from the 17th, was it?
Isn't it just one shared Sanborn Regional School account for videos?
I'm not sure. When I go to it, I go to the school board and then I look for the school board videos, or I go to the budget committee. So if you're looking for it under budget committee, you wouldn't find it there. You'd find it under school board videos.
You can also access it if you go to YouTube. I think Sanborn Regional School District, just videos or something.
Oh, then they're all grouped
And they're
together.
all there, and they
Oh,
dump everything together. Graduation, school board, everything is just there.
But you'd still have to do the one for the school board meeting, even on the YouTube.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same one.
I did not have any questions from that. Thank you for setting that up, Matt. No problem.
You ready for the?
I think we are.
Okay.
Hi, Vanessa.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I can hear you.
Sorry, I had something pop up last minute and I wasn't able to make it in there in time. So I figured I'd jump on Zoom rather than missing it. So I apologize.
Not a problem.
All right. Let's see.
And you are up, Matt,
Yep.
for forms. You have a presentation.
Yeah, I have a
Do it.
presentation. So basically, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Matt Angel. I'm the school business administrator. And right now I'm trying to share my screen so that the people at home can see it. And I'm gonna move this off to the side. Okay. And slideshow. All right. So on your agenda, there's gonna be like three different, I'm gonna try to put this off the screen. There's three different agenda items. I'm going to try to cover it all in this one presentation. Okay. So the first is in the state of New Hampshire, we look at the budget kind of backwards. We look at appropriations first, then revenues to come up with the net appropriations. You're going to find net appropriations among a lot of the different forms. If you go to other states, they reverse it. They go revenues and then appropriations, right? So you're going to see, wait a minute, the expenditures are going to be reported on the MS-22 and the revenues are going to be reported on the MS-24. I'm going to go through each and every single one of these forms. Oh, by the way, I do want to show to all the budget committee members that in your budget drive for planning 2023-24, my presentation is right here. Okay. So you can review it later on. And it's been there since July. Okay. So back to slideshow. So the first thing are impacts the tax rate. So what's going to drive your tax rate is going to be revenues that we receive that are non-tax revenues, voted appropriations. This is what the taxpayers vote at district meeting. Reservations of fund balance. Now, reservations of fund balance are going to be a little bit more confusing because you're not going to see those anywhere except for on the financial statements of the school district. Those are going to be typically the contingency fund. And this is something that the school board votes on once a year, typically in July. And we're going to revisit it again at the next meeting. Encumbrances are going to be the next one. These are purchase orders, basically. These are items that the management has decided are should be obligations of the school district. The next one are going to be other reserves of fund balances, such as prepaid expenditures. And I can show those to you on the financial statements because we just issued them. The school board just approved them and we just filed them with the state. So when we go through the budget process, people ask me questions, what's the tax rate impact? And what we've done is we developed a planning tool. And just remember, this is a planning tool. This is something that we've developed internally. The state has their own form that they use to calculate the tax rate, okay? And basically what I use, this tool is a mirror image of that form. So it's linked in the presentation. So all you have to do is just click on that where it says here, and it brings up the form. Now, the basic idea of the form is, and it's kind of confusing. It starts out with the appropriations, which is going to be right here. Here, I'm going to switch to the operating budget because that one makes more sense. So this is the operating budget that ended up on the warrant article back in last March, okay? And this is the actual document that I used to calculate the tax impact that went on the ballot. So what it does is it brings this number down and it subtracts out your local revenues. Your local revenues I have off the spreadsheet, just off to the side, up here to the right-hand side. These numbers right here, we're going to revisit this later on. This is what is essentially called the MS-24. This is your estimated revenues. Okay. oops, going off back over here to the left. So then it just subtracts out revenues, and then it makes some other adjustments to the appropriation. What it's doing is it's bringing in town-specific revenue. Town-specific revenue in this particular case would be impact fee revenue that we receive from Kingston and Newton. And those revenues, those specific revenues affect the tax rate only in Kingston or Newton. It's not a combined shared revenue. The next item down is the net capital. So basically the net capital, this is our debt service cost right here. We pay just over $2.3 million in principal and interest to bondholders every year. The state then reimburses us $469,000 towards that debt service. So the amount to the taxpayers is going to be $1.83 million. And they carry over the 1.83 million here because in the 37 million up above, it includes the full amount of the debt service. So they're trying to make an adjustment for that particular revenue. Now, this is where it's getting a little hairy, is when you get further down, we go through some, this form. Anyways, this retained tax rate here, this is what's called the swept tax. This is the statewide property tax. The state is going to come in. If you look at your tax bill for education, there are two parts of the tax bill. There's the state portion and then there's the local portion. The state portion is here. It's the retained tax. And then the local portion is what the result is down here for the local tax. Okay. So back up here, the state gives me what they're going to be taxing us, and it's going to be based upon the assessed valuation of each of the towns less the utilities. And then they're going to give us an adequacy grant for each of the towns. And you can see it's by Kingston and Newton over here. And then here's the impact, the local revenues. And then it goes through some allocations down here based upon the average daily membership of the district, and it's picking specific dates, and the state sets those dates, and they're really a couple of years old, and the capital one is like 5 years old. So then it drops down, it does some more calculations to come out with the local assessed valuation down here. Now what I've done is I've added the estimated tax rate. I've put in each of the town's assessed valuations right here with and without utilities. So what it means by utilities is power lines like for Unitil. Those power lines are included in the local share of the tax rate, but not in the state share of the tax rate. So then when we look at over here, you can see I'm calculating a local and a state share of the tax rate. But whenever I talk about the tax rate, I talk about the combined tax rate, because what I'm going to try to show you tonight is when there's a shift in the state share, there's an equal shift on the local share going the other way. It's essentially like they're moving a goalpost. So if the state wants to say, we're going to raise another $2 million for education, they can just say, they can just increase the state tax rate, and it's going to reduce the local tax rate. So when I talk to the tax rate to you guys, it's going to be state and local combined. Okay. And then I use a $300,000 home for an assessed value. And we can talk about this later as to whether it's a good idea to use $300,000 in your discussion. And it's really going to be relating to the valuation of the town. So for example, I expect the town of Kingston is going to break $860 million. And Newton's going to break $660 million. So as the towns increase in valuation, should the value of the average home increase? I just use 300,000 because people understand 300,000. Yeah, Jamie.
I got a question for you about if you go back up.
Yep.
You mentioned that the state building aid.
Yes.
So does the state building aid continue after that bond is paid, or does it go away when the bond is paid?
It goes away when the bond is paid. And it's a number that I know each and every year. And it starts in the first year that the bond was issued, ends in the last year the bond was issued.
So we can't tell them, well, we still want building aid after we've paid off a bond.
Well, we'd have to go and ask the state to, we'd have to approve as taxpayers a large project, and the state would have to approve itself.
It's only for bonded items.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I'm going to jump back onto the presentation.
Oop, can I ask another question? Matt?
Absolutely.
Sorry. It was about, you were saying that the numbers were old for the number of students. What exactly is that one there?
Well, this is average daily membership.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, but
And-
what is it calculating? Like for number, if that's just,
It's calculating a percentage between the two different communities.
thank you.
So it's allocating the operating costs based upon the most recent ADM and the capital costs based upon a 5-year ADM. Okay.
Yep.
This is Annie. Matt,
Yes.
I believe that if we were using current data instead of 2018 data, that the numbers have actually come much closer to each other. Aren't they like 48% and 52% instead of 45 and 55?
Yes, that is correct. However, this is the state calculation.
I
So
understand that. Yep. I was just pointing out that in the future, Newton is getting a larger share and Kingston's share is going down just slightly.
Yes, and that's a good point.
Yeah, just if I might, another point on that is if you go back to the ADM, in 2018, the number that's up there says that we had 1,351 students in the school. We had more than that in 2018. So there's still a discrepancy that I'm not clear on in my mind between actual head counts at periods of time and average daily membership, and as to why those are different numbers.
I was listening when you guys talked about this one of the last times, and the average daily, they just spot check random days. So if you have days that students aren't here, they don't count those students that days, and it just in attendance for the specific day. And then whatever the days they pick, they average.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, if you were to look at it on a weekly basis, if the student was there for 4 out of the 5 days, then the formula is 4/5.
But that's what I want to understand better, because when I read the RSAs, I don't see that requirement defined. So I'm trying to understand what it is that they're asking and how they get at it.
Yeah.
Because when I go back to the RSAs, and I could be doing it wrong, but when I go back to the RSAs, I can't find that differential in there.
Yeah. So when we go over one of my other slides, we're going to go over the different student data points. You know, one of them is October 1st, and the other one is average daily membership.
Yeah. But I would assume that when we're building budgets, we can't build around average daily membership, because that you can't assume that you'll always have those students missing on those days. You have to basically plan around every student being there on a given day.
Yeah, it's got to be enrollment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
agree.
going to be based upon students in attendance. I mean, a total student body,
So total.
assuming that they're going to be there 100% of the time.
Yeah, because if there's a day randomly that there's one more student than the average daily membership.
Yeah. You're going to see average daily membership pop up a lot, because it really determines the per pupil cost. Okay. So it's like when we talk about a particular data point, you have to understand what the source is of that data point. In one hand, it's going to be average daily membership. The other one is going to be the October 1st head count. Okay, so back to this. I'm going to jump to the next slide. Oh, I think I went too far. Nope. All right, so there's 4 major forms that this committee should be concerned about. The first one's going to be the MS-27, which is going to be the proposed budget. And I'm going to go over each of these forms in more detail. And what I wanted to do in this particular slide is give you the date when each of the forms are due and which body is going to sign each of the forms. So the MS-27, historically, the one that we're going to be using for this past budget cycle, the MS-27 was signed in January and was posted to all the taxpayers sometime at the end of January. The MS-22 is signed by the school board, and that's usually a few days after the district meeting. Then the MS-24 is a form that I prepare And I do that just before the tax rate is set. And I get to change the estimated revenues up to the point of setting the tax rate. There's certain numbers in there that I can change. There's certain numbers in there I can't change. The MS-25 is the school's financial statements that we submit to the Department of Revenue Administration and the Department of Education. And the school board just approved those last week. And those were submitted and they're done for the year. Now, the MS-27, now what this report here is intended to give taxpayers notice of the current expenditures, current appropriations, and budget decisions by the school board and budget committee by function and article. So by function meaning regular education, support services, administration, and then article. So when you're looking at the ballot, the operating budget is going to be Article 3. Like if we're going to have a CBA agreement, it's going to be Article 4. So the MS-27 also includes estimated revenues. Now, just remember that the MS-27 is informational purpose only. It has no impact on the tax rate setting. The MS-22, there's really two of them. There's one that the school board signs, and then there's the one that the Department of Revenue Administration needs to, and it ends up being 22R. So whenever you talk to this committee about the MS-22, I'm referring to the MS-22R. Okay.
Point of order. I've seemed to have lost audio from you, Matt. If
I have too. I can't hear Matt.
We got plenty of them.
Thank you, Annie.
Band, that is a red band.
Can you hear me now?
Right.
yes, yes, absolutely.
So did you hear the last slide?
Yes.
Okay, so the MS-22 is again a form signed by the school board, and it's going to report all the appropriations that are approved by the taxpayers at district meeting. Okay, these are going to be all the warrant articles all combined together. Now, when after the school board signs it, I submit it to the Department of Revenue Administration. They review it. If they make any changes to it, it then becomes the MS-22R. So whenever I speak about the MS-22, I always talk about the MS-22R, because that form is going to be the basis of setting your tax rate.
Thank you.
The next one, the MS-24, estimated revenues. This one's signed by me, the business administrator, and it's going to be amounts based upon estimated revenues that I present to the school board and budget committee during budget presentation. And I just want to stop here for a second because it is on the tax rate calculation. Again, my MS-24 information is right here. Okay, this is also the information that we put onto the budget committee's presentation. And that's going to be the basis of starting the discussion for setting the tax rate. Now, what's important to note is one of the major things that's going to change is the use of fund balance. Right now, it's $545,000. That's assuming the school board wasn't going to approve the contingency fund. And I stuck the real number over here. So it's really going to be here. Wait a minute, just to show you how the tax rate changes. I'm going to scroll on down. I want you to see that on this current calculation, the tax rate is for Kingston is $17.69. And for Newton, it's $18.68. But when I type in the unassigned fund balance, so this is the amount of money that is going to be returned back to the taxpayers.
Matt, one question. This is Annie.
Yep.
The contingency fund money also gets returned from last year. So shouldn't it be in addition to the 1,000,001, or does that 1,000,001 also include the 500,000 that was retained the year before?
It includes it, but it also includes any revision from it. So the school board voted in June to reserve, I believe it was $537,000.
Okay, so the
Net of-
whole amount, I'm sorry, so the whole amount that was left at the end of last year's budget, after all expenditures, was really only about 500,000 plus the contingency fund from the year before?
No, the change in the contingency fund was only about $7,000. The remainder is surplus revenues and turn back of appropriations.
I'm not sure I'm following either.
Yeah, I know.
So
Okay,
is
so
that-
in prior years, we've had, millions of dollars returned to the taxpayers as credits. And this year, it's a more typical 1 million. But I'm astonished that the 500,000 in contingency is included in that 1 million. And I just want to make sure that that's true.
So if I could, I can try to say it like this when Matt said it like that
Yeah, go ahead.
and see if that catches on. So after all was said and done in spending from the budget, there's $1.1 million left over. Then you add to that the 545,000 contingency for last year, and I'll just call it 500,000. There's 1.6 million. But then we voted to take 500,000 and make it contingent this year, so it came back down to 1.1 million.
That's clear. Thank you.
So when
Okay.
Matt says it includes it, it's all been washed through, but there's the 1.1 million going back, and there's 537,000 being held into 2023.
Okay, thank you.
where is that? So can you scroll over to that other one again? The revenue one that you were talking about? I think it was revenue. over there.
Yes.
So the use of.
Use
so
of fund balance.
contingency, that money that we decided to keep this year is not on here.
It's hard to explain.
Okay.
The net amount is on there. Okay, so let me say it a different way. So if you're a corporation, okay, that 1,175,000, that's your retained earnings.
Yep.
Okay. And essentially what we're doing is we're recording that retained earnings as if it's revenue. And the effect is we're budgeting for a net income loss.
I guess,
We're not in the business to retain earnings.
yes. I guess I would have thought that it would have been different line items, right? But maybe it's just how it's shown.
Yeah.
But I think I get the gist of it, that I get where the number's coming from. We added it all together, what's left over, what we saved the previous year, and then we landed at what we saved. So I get how we get the 1.1 million. I just don't understand how that was it 537, where we see that number in here.
Okay.
You
I-
don't see it here.
You don't see it anywhere?
Not in this spot.
Okay,
It's a fund for the school board to use if something goes bad. and
okay,
they need it.
Yep.
And every year that money actually goes back and the school board votes on it again. So next year they could say it's 200,000 instead of 537,000.
gotcha.
It doesn't add, doesn't go up. Every year they have to vote on the whole new number.
Okay,
So if
Yes.
they don't use it at all, that number is still 5. That's going back to the taxpayers until they vote on the new number.
Yeah.
So the 525 is basically end of 22 carryover,
Yes.
23.
Yes.
Yeah. It's from
Correct.
last year's vote.
And it goes into a different fund, so.
And then what we're
That's what
talking
Dan is
about
saying.
is end of year carryover to the next one,
Right.
Is
which is the
5,
next batch of carryover.
Yes.
7, whatever, 537.
I'll show it to you on the balance sheet. Okay.
Think of it in terms of, you got the 1.1 million left over. So just think of that in terms of cash in a bank. And so when I say that I need 9 million to run it, or whatever the number is, just to make up numbers, I got 1.1 million already in my hand. So I only have to go back to the taxpayers for 8.9 million. In addition to that, in another fund, there's this $537,000 that are hanging out there.
But Is it true that you have to return the 520 something and whatever you keep has to come out of the 1.1? You can't keep from 2 years ago.
Every year, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, every single year, this contingency amount, there's two things that can happen to it. One is during the course of the year, they just changed the law that you can have a public hearing about it and the school board can vote to spend it. Absent that happening, it must by law go back to the taxpayers.
Yeah, I think.
And
I
then
agree.
that year, the school board then votes on any additional unexpended funds as to whether they want to hold that or not.
So most likely, if you are going to pick a number to return back or to keep, I should say, technically that number is coming out of the 1.1. Just for fund purposes,
Yeah.
it's easier to shift the 5,
Right.
whatever it was, back from 22.
Yes,
Keep a portion of the 1.1 and then return the rest with the 5.
yes.
So when Matt would give the sheet, he'd say, okay, we're right now at, again, make the number simple. We're at 1.6 million. I'm recommending you hold 500,000. Okay, hold 500,000. Okay, I have 1.1 million going back to the taxpayers. And I'm putting this other 500,000 in another account. That either has to go back the following year or a public hearing has to happen saying, we're going to spend this, we're proposing spending this because of whatever reason. And then the school board votes on it. Before it used to have to go through the Department of Education, the Department of Revenue. There used to be all kinds of state sign-offs required.
Okay.
And the budget committee had to sign off, but does
Budget
not.
committee, school board, and those two state departments is
Yeah.
my understanding.
Annie, what you're understanding is the old law, the new law changed.
No, that's what I was saying. The old law. So it sounds like the budget committee no longer has a role.
That's correct.
Okay.
So I just want to kind of show how that calculation is determined. It's really, and I'm going to put the formula in here. It's really 2.5% of, wait a minute, times that number right there. And well, no, it's not. Okay, so this is based upon my estimate. Okay, the actual one, I'm actually using the tax rate forms that I get from the state, and it would come in it's come in as a lower number. This is 614,000.
And what does that number represent? That's the maximum amount of money you can hold
Yeah.
from one year to the next.
Right, because the taxpayers authorized the school board to retain those funds, and they only authorized up to 2.5%. The statute allows us to, the statute allows the taxpayers to authorize the school board to retain up to 5%, but the taxpayers have not done that. Okay. All right, so back to the presentation in my MS-24. Now, again, this is the estimated revenues, and I update this form just prior to setting the tax rate. And what I do is I try to finalize the tuition number that we're going to receive from Fremont. I try to finalize some of the other things that I know that are going to happen within the current fiscal year. Because right now, when I try to build this next year's budget, I'm projecting out 18 months. And so it's just a guesstimate at this point. Okay. Now, this MS-24, I submit to the DRA, and the DRA makes adjustments to it. And there's some numbers that they have that they don't share with us, such as special education aid. In years past, they've only allowed us to retain up to 80% of the number that only they had. And so on the MS-24, you're going to see that the state had made some adjustments to the number that they know about. They then convert it to the MS-24R. Whenever I talk about the MS-24 that's used to set the tax rate, I'm referring to the MS-24R. So the next one is the MS-25 and the DOE-25. These are the balance sheet and income statement of the school district, okay? If you understand governmental accounting, they're based upon pre-GASB 34 accounting pronouncements plus GASB 51. I know that's gobbledygook to 99% of everybody. So the MS-25 is filed with the DRA, and the DOE-25 is filed with the Department of Education. The MS-25 is more, is a smaller document. It's condensed, and the DOE-25 goes on for like 70 pages. And it includes a lot finer detail, and it calculates the per pupil cost. So I have a copy of the MS-25 linked to the presentation. That's the old one. Let's look at the new one. So under your the Budget Committee Google Drive, if you go into financial information and then go into fiscal year 22, here's the fiscal year 22 MS-25. And this is the one that the school board approved just a couple weeks ago. I'm only presenting just the MS-25. Oh, look, it's rotated. The MS-25 is the one that that is used to, let me zoom in, is used for helping set the tax rate. So right here, I'm going to try to put my cursor over it. This is the unassigned fund balance. In a commercial company, this right here would be your retained earnings. Okay. And then any number in the fund equity section right here is moved in and out of unassigned fund balance. Here's the contingency fund. The amount we're retaining of fund balance carrying into the next fiscal year is $537,817. Okay. The taxpayers authorized $175,000 to be put in capital reserve funds. So that's also being retained. If you remember, I think 50,000 went into special revenue fund, 50,000 went into unanticipated educational expenses, and then 75,000 went into a new capital reserve fund for unanticipated utility costs or energy costs. And then up above, here's the prepaid number. So basically, if I prepay a bill, there's essentially no money at year end. So you have to reserve that because I paid it before year end. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to the presentation and go to the next slide. So I know we've gone over this. The unassigned fund balance at the end of the year is $1.1 million. That's going to be returned back to the tax rate to reduce the tax rate. I mean, it's going to return to the taxpayers. Now, we also have this historical information worksheet that you're going to find in the Google Drive. I'm going to skip out of here and go into the Google Drive. I got to close this out. Oop. Going to try to zoom in. Okay, I'm going to go down. So under the planning, here's a historical information worksheet right here. So this right here this is something that Annie wanted a couple of years ago, and we pulled it together, and we've been trying to keep it together. It actually has a lot of really good information in it. And the first one is all the per pupil costs by elementary, middle, and high school for, it looks like the last 11 years. You can see for 21, 22, I have it as an estimate. I can actually update it with the information that's going to be in my DOE 25 because we just approved it at the last school board. Okay. The state may make some changes to it, so it's still going to be estimate, but I can update it further. Now, the numbers here for 22, 23, these are based upon the budget information that we determined last fall. And you can see for this coming cycle, it's blank, and we're going to determine that later in the budget cycle. Now, I'm going to scroll on down, and this is to Jamie's point. We're going to start off with the student enrollment for October 1st. And we've highlighted some numbers here because what we found out is the state uses the enrollment numbers differently and differently in each of the years. So you can see more recently, starting in school year 2018, 2019, the state started including the kindergarten, calculating some of its numbers. And for all these pieces of data, I put the source up here. So you can go and click on it and you can pull up the DOE's website and you can go and find the data yourself. Now, here's the average class size. And again, I have estimates for 22, 23, because the average class size is calculated using the October 1st figures. And it's not October 1st yet. So we don't know what our enrollment is. And there's a source here for the source data from the DOE's website for that information. And if we go down further, there's the teacher-student ratio. And it has all the enrollment information, all the teachers that we have. Now, you have to remember for the teachers, these are the teachers that we have on staff, as opposed to teachers that we have funded. Because there's always a moment in time where we have teachers, we have positions for teachers that are just not filled, okay? And that's going to become important down further. So here for staffing, for the last budget cycle, we budgeted for 132 teachers and 74.8 support staff. However, the prior year, we only had 125 teachers. Even though we funded more, we could only hire that many because we have a teacher shortage right now. Right, so that's the historical information spreadsheet.
Can I just say one thing there? Going
Yes.
back to your teacher thing, I just want to point out that the surge in instructional support funded positions, that's because of the intervention that went up so much.
That's correct.
So I just wanted to point that out, that's where a lot of that is. And a lot of those were not filled in the last year, but hopefully, I don't know what the status is, but it'll be good to hear. Thank
Can I
you.
ask a question, Matt? Just regarding the teacher to student ratio, that source, does it break down all of, like, is it every single teacher position within the school, like gym teachers, like all of that?
But it depends upon the year, because in some years they didn't include certain teachers in there, in the state didn't include certain teachers in their calculation. And that's
So
why
do they disclose that in the sourcing information or no?
No, we
Okay.
figured it out. Annie asked a question of like, why is this different? Why does it jump from one year to the next? And we had to dissect how the state's reporting it. And we determined that they're not including, let's see, they're not including kindergarten teachers.
Recently or like in the past or?
Yeah, starting in 2018, 2019, they started including kindergarten teachers. Prior to that, they did not.
Okay. But that makes sense because they're including kindergarten students. So if you're including the students, you should be including the teachers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my question, Matt. For those years that they were not including the teachers, do they also include kindergarten students?
They included the kindergarten students.
Well, that's just
Wait.
stupid.
Wait a minute.
You can see
Included,
it
they
goes,
included kindergarten students in that calculation?
yes,
Wow.
10.1 to 10.6. That's what you saw.
It looks like all the numbers are going to be skewed, obviously, because of that. I mean, if you just look over it, not including the preschool students,
Yeah.
then whenever you get the number back from the state saying this is the cost per student, it really should have an additional 40, 50, whatever the numbers of preschool students
Yeah.
to kind of defer that. And it's not going to make a massive difference, but it's still going to make a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, it's going to make a little bit of a difference. So it really, the point of all this data is to make you aware of the moving target that we get from the state. All right. Their numbers are consistent and they make changes from time to time. All right. So there's some other points that I want to make out. Let me bring up the slideshow. It's a little bigger. So on the school board meeting for June 22nd, Tom and I asked and got approval from the school board to withdraw $194,234 from the special education fund to hire 2 special education teachers. What I have here, the point that I want to make with both of these is that we got approval of up to 194,000. It doesn't mean that we're going to take 194,000. The intent is we're going to try to fund it through our current appropriations. But if we can't do it, we have authority from the school board to withdraw up to 194,000. Now,
So, Matt?
Yeah.
There was also talk of being able to use the ESSER funds because a lot of these teacher requirements are due to the lack of learning that occurred over the pandemic period and people coming back from the pandemic. Do we have any information about the use of the ESSER funds for this?
I do not at this point.
Thank you.
Would
you call it the ESSER fund?
Yeah, I don't know what it stands for. It's
yeah.
during the pandemic, Matt and the administration were able to secure significant funding to address, for lack of a better word, educational issues associated with the pandemic that remain open. And I think there's something, and Matt would have the numbers better, $600,000+ associated with that at the end of the year. And so the question becomes, if some of this extra help that we need is the kids lacked a lot of socialization, they lacked a lot of interaction, facial interaction, and other interaction in this period. They therefore come into the pre-K and the kindergarten scenarios, and they're just not in the same mode of readiness as prior grades that didn't experience those type of restraints in their learning. And does that therefore make these hires something that we can use this funding for that was associated with trying to address the shortfalls in learning from the pandemic? ESSER stands for something. I just don't know what the acronym is.
Yep. So I guess, so it sounds like kind of grants or fund or something. There's a lot of stuff coming from COVID, but that's not included in the 1.1 million that's being returned. And that fund
No.
balance is something separate.
It's separate.
Okay.
We cannot commingle federal money with local money.
But you can carry that money over from one year to the next.
The federal money I can carry from one year to the next.
Okay.
And it's
Can I
really
ask a
based on the authorization of that grant.
Can I ask a question real quick? Well, point of order, Courtney, I can't hear you when you're talking, hon, so I don't know what you're saying, but the ESSER is not repeatable though, right? It's just a grant, and then once that money runs out, if you have the staff, what happens at that point?
We let them go. Really,
Okay.
the
So,
the ESSER funds is to recover costs associated with COVID and
Yep.
for learning loss.
okay. But I think, Jamie, I just want to add to your input that there is an increase at the lower level in terms of enrollment at the lower level, and they don't quite know what they need for additional support at the lower level. So I think that is playing into this number as well, and the support that they need. And I do have concerns that if the lower level enrollments continue to grow and we use that ESSER grant, we will lose that staff that we will potentially need for new incoming kindergarten grades. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think there's some balancing that has to be done by the administration. Overall, we're net down 24 people in the district year over year. It's not as easy as just saying I got 24, so I can miraculously just create a position and move a position. But that certainly is a valid point that will have to be looked at as we go forward, is what exactly do we have coming in? What new construction is going up, new homes coming in, what's the projections going on? I know that the original decline projections from the study have flattened out, and a lot of that is believed to be associated with the ability to work remote that didn't exist prior to the pandemic, that is now far more accepted. So far more people have moved into the area than we were getting in terms of people with young kids previously. So we're still on a declining trend, but it's not at the same rate as that study had showed. So all of that will have to be taken into account. But I know that on some of the special ed numbers, those were specifically associated with kids coming in that had remaining learning issues from the pandemic. It's my understanding.
Okay, so I just fixed my slide. So the top one there says 2 special education teachers with
You gotta
benefit
say, you gotta say teachers, put a
teachers.
S on.
That's the cool thing about this Google stuff. Oops,
Teacher 3.
go. Teacher.
I wonder if I could, I'd just like to say that the special education fund is not one that we've currently been funding. It's an older fund, and instead we have a general education fund that we've been funding in the March elections, on the March ballots. So this is an older fund, which has kind of been sitting for a few years, a number of years.
All right, so if we remove the $194,000 from the fund using current balances, only $46,983 will remain in that fund. So on the next one that was approved at that same school board is to withdraw $97,117 from the unanticipated educational expenses capital reserve fund, which is to hire a first grade teacher. And again, this is an up to amount. So we're going to try to fund this through current appropriations and not touch these funds, but the school board has authorized us to dip into these funds if we have to. All right.
And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we reduce the special education department funding by like a couple of years ago? So this is sort of offsetting that maybe? Do you remember what the reductions were for that? I remember the special education had reductions.
Yeah.
And I think it was $190,000 reduction, and I was able to get, or we were able to approve some additional money put back into there. But anyways,
Yeah,
that's fine.
So what I understand the special education to be is there is some need at the Bakey School that we need, oh no, Bakey and Memorial, that we need to hire additional special education teachers for the year. Now, when we go through the budget cycle, we're going to try to plug them into the budget because we anticipate the need going forward. Because usually these teachers follow the kids throughout their whole career at the district. Okay. So I think that's it. So questions?
Oh, we were supposed to wait.
I do have a question about these funds and these grants and how they're reflected in the budget or
Okay.
in your revenue. So let's say it's in this fund, right? And we pull it in. It's not revenue, but it's not. How do you account for that if it's not in that whole number, that big number?
So what I did is I put up on the screen what I present to the Finance Committee and Facilities Committee for the funds that are being held in those reserve funds. Okay.
Okay.
This is the first one here is special education, and you can see that the revenue going into it are small numbers. It's like $170,000 last year and $169 in interest last year and $43 this year so far. Okay. So if you go down further, you can see the capital improvement and maintenance, this number right here, this $50,000. This was a specific warrant article that was on the ballot. Okay. And what happens is when the taxpayers approve this on July 1, because the ballot says surplus at June 30th. So on July 1, I physically cut a check and hand it to the Kingston trustees of trust funds. And so it's out of our checkbook and it's in the trustees' hands. Okay. They invest it and we accumulated a balance over several years. So for that particular fund, we have $273,000 at the end of the school year. So this is June 30, 2022 balance. Okay. Now, what's important to note about this document that I give to the Finance Committee, if you want to see the warrant article that authorized this fund's existence, I put it off to the right-hand side because there's always a discussion of is the withdrawal going to be within the meaning of the article that the taxpayers approved? And so I gave it to them so that they can consider any decision we make against the article from the taxpayers. Okay.
Mhm.
So at the end of June, all the money, including the contingency fund that the school board has access to, is $1,418,000. $1,418,000. That's all the reserve funds plus the contingency fund. So did I answer your question?
This is very helpful. But I guess when we're talking about cost per pupil and what am I trying to say here? If we took money from any of these accounts, how does that tie into some of those calculations? So like we have our planned budget. I might need to write you an email.
Okay, well, no, it's fine. Any expenditure okay, so there's multiple funds in the district, okay?
Yep.
The two basic ones that you should be concerned about, or there's three basic ones. The first one's the general fund, which deals with the operating budget. Okay, so that would be your Article 3 on the ballot, okay? Also in Article 3 is the special revenue fund, and those are going to be your federal and state grants. And that federal grants would be special education and additional reading and math grants. And then the third fund would be school food service. So if I have to dip into any of these reserves, I have to transfer the balance back into the general fund. And then I have to account for any expenditures to it. So it will increase the cost per pupil.
Just to extend that further, we would have to go to the trustees and say, we have this need. The trustees would have to then say, what do I have liquid? What do I have invested in order to meet that need? And then potentially have to sell some investments in order to do it. So we work with the trustees to be conservative, because we don't want to end up in a situation where we go say, hey, I need some money, and it was all, say, invested in, I don't know, pick a company. They don't do this, but theoretically you could pick a company and invest it there. And if that stock's gone down, you might not have the value that you think you have. So we work with them to make sure that the investments are prudent and reasonable. And actually, we're talking with them about having another recalibration meeting in a coming finance meeting.
Yeah.
But if you pulled from an investment, temporarily, it's only an artificial increase in cost per student, because the taxpayers wouldn't fund that increase. It would be funded from that. The increase would be funded from that fund, basically.
Yes. So while that statement is true, the original funding of that reserve came from the taxpayers. Okay. Does that make sense?
But I'm assuming that was counted when it was first put in there, though.
That's right.
So that's already been accounted for.
Yes.
But just to be clear, I think if I spent an extra, pick a number, $1 million that came out of the trust funds into the general expenditure funds because they were released, my general expenditure spending is what the basis of my cost per student is going to be, right? So it would show up as an increase in the cost per student because you're taking your general expenditure funds and dividing it by your average daily membership.
Yes, that's correct.
I think part of what, I think it was Ken who was saying that, I think part of what he's talking about is it doesn't affect the tax rate
Yeah.
for the current year. It affects the total spent, but it doesn't affect the tax rate for that year.
It's like an artificial income or something.
Yes.
Correct.
That's right.
The tax implication potentially would be with the request to replenish the reserves.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And a
Right.
future warrant that says, I need you, we spent the extra, in my example, $1 million. I need you guys to approve another $1 million in reserves.
Which would then make it not artificial, would make it real.
Correct. And then you'd be refilling your buckets, as it were.
Matt, question on the total reserves that you have there of 1.4, is that after all expenses at the end of the year? So it's after the funding for taking out money for special ed, for instance, and for another teacher?
No, this is before taking out money for special education and the first grade teacher. So this is in it. So look at this in a timeline. The numbers I'm presenting here were as of June 30th. I got the request. We got the request from the school board on, even though on June 22nd, we're not going to withdraw the funds out of this account until after June 30th. So it's going to be like January or February before I'm going to go and ask the trustees to withdraw the funds.
Unless you have.
So right now, authorized is basically to have total reserves of about 1.2 million, not 1.4. It doesn't mean that it's going to be spent because you're going to try and get the money from other sources. But no, not 1 point, it'd be 1.1, not 1.4.
Yeah. So to say what you're saying a different way, I have 1.4 in funds, but I have those two amounts obligated, which is it's like almost 300,000. So you're right, 1.1
Okay.
available. So I do have to kind of make a point out of all of this. A lot of the terminology I use has been developed over the last couple hundred years. Like the word encumbrance, no one uses it except for governments. And it's a word you'll find in government literature going back like 200 years. Okay, so when you see me talk, I'm talking like old language. And then when you see Jamie talk, he's trying to like convert it to business.
Older language than that.
All right. Any other questions?
I would like to go back to the tax rate calculation.
Sure.
One thing I know that happened is there was an estimate of, I think, $2.11 of an increase for Newton, but now there's more money that's actually being credited. So what's the impact? What's the difference in the tax rate? And I understand these are just estimates. It's before DRA gets her hands on it.
What money are you talking about that's being credited? Oh, you're talking about impact fees?
No, I'm talking about the unexpended funds.
Okay.
It's 1.1 instead of 450,000 roughly.
We're
The
doing.
formula.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So just, we didn't look at how that made the difference in the tax rate estimate.
Okay. I don't know if I can split my screen. Let me see if I can split it. I can split it in Word. I mean, Excel. I don't see.
I don't know if it's 10 cents or 50 cents.
Here, let me just kind of go down here. Let me just copy this out.
I think it was like
1729, I think I saw in the,
Yeah, I thought it was 20 something.
something in that range.
Yeah.
No, I don't like how it's doing it. So 17. So Google Sheets is a little weird. 1868. So all right. So if I go and change that, now you guys have access to this. You can download it and play with it all you want. Just know that I'm the one who keeps the official version, and it changes all the time as the tax rate is set and when the assessed values are known. So if I add in the use of fund balance, we're going to end up with $7.2 million in estimated revenues, and it's going to reduce the tax rate by 40 cents in Kingston and 44 cents in Newton,
Okay, thank you.
based upon the number that we put on the warrant.
Mhm. While you have, I'm sorry, one more question. While you had that open and talking about the average home assessed value, I believe in 2023, which is the coming year, Kingston will be going through a revaluation. Obviously the, average value of homes have gone up a lot, but in the current valuation, it's based on 2018 for Newton or for Kingston and 2020 for for Newton. Those will be updated in 2023 for Kingston and 2025 for Newton. So at that point, we would look and see, I would think, what the average home assessed value is.
So every year the assessed value changes. So just to kind of give you an example, like Annie was talking about, say for example, Kingston went to 870 million. Okay, it would reduce the tax rate. Whoops. I hate.
Count your zeros.
Yeah, I just did it again. I have on my, I don't have my reading glasses on, so I can't see it.
There
we
you go.
So it reduced the tax rate an additional 19 cents in Kingston. But you have to understand, you're reducing the tax rate, but you're increasing the value of the homes. So your bill's essentially the same.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Matt, really quick question.
Yeah.
And you made a mention that you have the master and you're constantly updating it. Do you then update this form within our Google Drive?
We haven't done that in the past, but I could definitely do that, give you the current version so you can see what I'm looking at. The only fear I have is if someone goes in there and changes the number and it's different than what I'm presenting, then like right now, I just changed it. Okay. So it doesn't equal the number that I had for the tax warrant last year.
But Matt, nobody has the ability to go in and change the numbers that are in Google Drive.
Okay.
Except you. I do, but I don't do it. But
Download.
because just for that reason, because of right to know and because of preserving documents without changes.
Sure. So yeah, we can keep it in the Google Drive and you guys can see it and play with it. You can download it and work on it on your own. You guys can have fun with this.
Thanks.
I know governmental accounting is so fun.
No, there's another form that I'd like you to discuss briefly, if you would, please, Matt, which is 12A or 12B.
Oh, the A12?
A12, yeah.
Yeah. The A12. So if we go to the historical information, the A12, if we go down to the bottom, I'm sorry if I'm going too fast. The A12 right here is the staffing. So we report to the Department of Education staff we have, or we report filled positions, okay? And when I'm talking to the budget committee, I talk about funded positions. So the A12 only reports filled positions. And that's being used to calculate your teacher per student ratio. So we're not using the filled positions to determine teacher student ratio. I'm sorry, we're not using the funded positions. We're using the filled positions.
I would assume if you have 10 teacher spots, you can't fill, you don't count those teachers as here, so.
Right.
And that's updated as you fill positions?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Is that number updated as you fill those positions, or is it just captured at like the year end or something?
The A12 hasn't been filed for this year. Again, it's a certain date and time, and I don't have that date in the top of my head, but I know it's this fall. At that time, I will update the staffing line right here to show what we have for filled positions. And then the next line up for when we do the budget, I'm going to put in the funded positions.
To piggyback, I wonder if part of her comment is this considered for you a live document that you go in and update where it is where we'll see it, or are you just giving us this to present today and then you?
Oh, no.
Jump it back in?
It's a live document. I update it all the time. You will be able to go and see it in the Google Drive.
Okay.
I think it's worth in some forum, talking about when we talk about that ratio, that we say, yeah, okay, this is our filled positions versus funded, and maybe making that distinction when we talk about it. So people understand, like, okay, well, the ratio is high. I saw like, what is it, 20 or something, but maybe we have more funded positions, or just because it's a hot topic, and maybe clarify that this is the roles that we were able to fill.
Yeah.
But we do have funding for more, just from a public, so the public knows.
Okay, just to be clear, when we fund positions, we fund for programs that we think we need to educate our kids. When we're not filling all of our positions, we are trying our best to meet those needs,
Yeah.
but we don't have all the people. Okay.
As far as the assessed value of the home, I know we're going back to that. I just did it. I did 300, 400, and 500 when I was doing my own little thing, just so people have an idea. It's a quick calculation. I don't know. And it's really for only internal uses, right? And when we share it with the public. So, I mean, 300 is fine, but putting in a range might be something to consider as well.
Sure. Well, you control the budget committee controls the slides.
Oh,
So if you want to put in a range like that, and it's a good idea, because people are going to look and say, my assessed value is close to that number. So I'm going to expect my tax bill to be this.
Yeah.
So that's great. Is that it?
I just on the assessed value, I just think it's important to, once again, unless somebody just recently bought a house, their assessed value is a couple of years old. It does not reflect market value necessarily.
Yeah, assessed value is not the same as market value.
and you can find that on the Newton page and the Kingston page. You can go and look at what yours is, what your neighbor's is. It's all public record. So if they're not sure what it is, they can find it.
That's correct.
You just can't trade them.
That A12 is due late October.
The
Last year was the 29th.
yeah. So this you're talking about the assessed values.
No, the A12.
Oh, the A12. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Teacher fill rate thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I was thinking about the assessed values. So the assessed values are reported to the Department of Revenue Administration, and I believe the due date is September 1st. So the towns have to have their valuations done by September 1st. That doesn't mean that they're actually done. So I think last year, one of the towns went into November in getting the assessed values sent to the state. Is that it?
Good job, Matt. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Oh, Jamie's got a question.
Just process. Do you have on the file due dates of the different budget cycle, the budget process this year? Just so we all have that at our fingertips. This is when we're going to be reviewing this. This is when this comes up, et cetera.
You're talking about the budget calendar?
Yeah.
I don't think the budget calendar was put into the drive. Do you know, Annie?
I don't know. I don't remember, but I can look. I think the budget calendar that we all approved is a draft, and the school board needs to put input in it. And Matt had said that he was going to check with DRA on it. So it's not really in final format yet.
That's right. There's a draft out there. So what Annie's talking about is the Department of Revenue Administration submits their guidance for when town meeting should occur in like October, November. So we really can't finalize it until the state gives us guidance.
If you all would like, I'll be happy to put the draft in there, but I won't be happy to. I don't have a computer right now. But I can ask, it's on record, so I can ask to get it put into the Google Drive if you'd all like to have the draft in there. Would that be helpful?
It would to me.
Yeah. We also
Okay.
have the budget committee operation talks
Yes,
about
yes.
when, like, late September, October, not exact dates, but
Right.
general timing that is in the shared drive. And so it looks like we have through now through late September to submit any questions on what Matt's presented. I think last meeting, we just wanted a presentation and then we can kind of, if we have any probing questions, we can reach out. And then it says here that the second week of October, looks like our next meeting, October 13th. would probably
Right. So if everybody gets their questions to me, by, I believe, check with me, Courtney, is it the 23rd of October or the 24th?
be
I
great.
mean, September.
Are you looking for, I don't have the exact date, it just says late September, but we're saying 2 weeks before. Just
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, it's usually the 23rd, 24th.
Is it a meeting
Yeah, the
day?
agenda says September 28th
Okay.
for questions on current or past budgets.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Jamie. So it's September 28th, and then what I will do is I'll put them together, I'll collate them. I'll try and make sure that there aren't ones which were asked and answered in prior years, so we don't end up with a 4-hour meeting with old information. And submit it to the administration. And then on the 13th of October, we'll meet and they'll give us the answers to all those questions. According to what we set up on our calendar.
Right. Anything else?
We hire a secretary.
No. We reposted though, right, Annie? Or they are reposting?
They're reposting. I asked Kirstie Alley to repost it on her board too, and she's going to put it up. And that hopefully we'll end up with a student. That's one of the things we talked about, that we'd love to have a 16 or 17 or 18-year-old student.
So where are we posting?
It's Phyllis has several different places that she posts them. It'll be in the Carriagetown News. There are a couple of
Okay.
professional sites. And then in addition, it'll be on the school board for student jobs, so they can look
Okay.
at it. And hopefully we'll
Okay.
get some response.
Was there something wrong with the people that applied, or are those old?
We don't have any applications.
All right, so the ones that are on the shared drive are old.
Yeah. they're
Yes. Yeah, those were from 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Okay.
And did,
That was
Can we
one of the things Courtney said, can we get that out of there? And yes, we can, Courtney. I'll take care of it.
did we reach out to those candidates to see if they were re-interested or?
That was something that Jim McCarthy did over a year ago, and none
No,
of them were interested.
Oh, okay.
It was old data. Yep.
Gotcha.
Oh, they're
Okay.
still in the file. They can't say no, they're in the file.
I'm gonna ask you every,
As for today, I took big minutes. And so I'll send those out to you guys.
I can't hear you, Courtney.
Why can't you hear? All
it's
right.
dead again, hold on.
All right. So as far as today go, I took meeting minutes and I'll send those out to you guys. Vanessa, if you have the ones from April by chance, can you send those out too, or resend them if you
Sure.
so we'll have them for today, and hopefully we're not meeting again until September, so fingers crossed. Or if you know anyone that would be a good fit, definitely send them our way. Yes.
Are we meeting in September, or are we just sending the questions in September, but we're not meeting until October?
We're not meeting until October. Get my dates straight. Thank you, Ken. All right. Anything else? Any other business? Go Going once, going twice. All right. All right. It is 8:21. I'm calling it. We'll meet again Thursday, October 13th at 7 p.m. here, right?
Right.
All right. Perfect.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thanks. Great job. Great job, Courtney.
Thank you.
Oh. There we go. Have a good one, everyone.